Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this very, very special episode of the BWH Dialogues. And I'm back in the hot seat today with two gentlemen I've done a show with in 2024, Alan Watt and Zubin Saxena. They both had very, very important portfolios for Hilton. Thank you for being here, Alan. Such a pleasure to have you back here.
Great to be back with BW Hotelier.
Thank you, Zubin. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you, Bhuvanesh. It's such a pleasure to be back with you again.
Thank you. Now, with your permission, do I get rolling?
Absolutely.
All right. So when we began the BW Dialogues in 2024, the question before global hospitality leaders was of intent. Intent to invest, intent to grow, intent to believe in India. 2 years on, the conversation has truly matured. Alan will tell us more about it because he looks at it from a lens which is a little far away, sitting in Singapore. Today, India and South Asia are no longer markets of future promise alone. They're markets of present consequence. They demand clarity of vision, speed of execution, which we were speaking about, and partners who are willing to commit for the long term. Hilton is one of the few global hospitality companies that has chosen to engage this region across the entire spectrum. And why do I say that? From premium economy to ultra luxury, from tier 1 metros to emerging cities, and from brand ambition to owner confidence, which is extremely important. This business is how do you engage with the owners and how do you create opportunities and create partnerships. Sitting with me today, these two leaders, as I did just mention, Alan Watts, who oversees Hilton's Asia Pacific strategy from a global vantage point, and Zubin Saxena, who leads Hilton's business in South Asia and India, where the strategy meets reality every single day. This conversation is not about announcements. No, they're not making any major announcements. It's about direction. Where does Hilton see India and South Asia today? What has changed since 2024 when we met last? And what will define leadership and hospitality in the decade ahead? Welcome to the BWH Dialogue. This is a premier platform with leaders of the hospitality industry. And Alan does not need much of an introduction, but for those ones who need to know him better, Alan oversees over 2,100 hotels. Is the number right?
Yes.
All right, there you are. Both operational and in the pipeline across 13 of the company's globally recognized brands. Since joining Hilton in 2018, Alan has led Asia Pacific, maintaining its position as the fastest growing hotel company in the region, with almost 1 in 4 hotel rooms under construction bearing the Hilton flag. Well, I say welcome, Alan. I must say Hilton's best is yet to come. All right, and we shall talk about that. Joining Alan is Zubin Saxena. He's the Senior Vice President and Regional Head for Hilton, South Asia, with India and Sri Lanka under his belt. In this pivotal role based in the Hilton corporate headquarters in Gurgaon, Zubin leads a team of over 3,500 team members across 32 hotels, steering growth and enhancing Hilton's brand presence in India and Sri Lanka. Like I said, correct those numbers if you have to. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
All right, super.
Yes.
So welcome again. Now, gentlemen, let me get rolling with the first question to Alan. Alan, tell me, picking up from the 2024 BWH Dialogues, what has changed most in how Hilton views South Asia, particularly India, within its Asia Pacific and global strategy?
Look, it's a great question. When we were together in 2024, we were talking about India having a moment in a post-COVID environment. It had had the fastest V-shaped recovery. RevPARs had been double-digit growth for 2 years in a row, and the industry was gathering momentum. And our question at the time was, Was it having another cyclic moment that our industry in South Asia is so famous for, or was it building sustainable momentum? And we questioned ourselves as to, were the conditions different this time? We juxtaposed at the time that they were indeed different. It was fueled by domestic demand. It was fueled by infrastructure growth. It was fueled by Indian stronger household consumers were leading into our market. And we suppose that there was a future for hotel companies like there is in any market in the world, and that future was a pyramid. Think of it as an aeroplane with everything from ultra first class to the bottom of the pyramid. The most seats on a plane are the economy and the mid-scale. 2 years on, that moment has become momentum. If I think of it from a Hilton perspective, we have identified India as the third largest lodging market in the world in the long term, and that is not a if or when conversation, that's a now conversation. We've invested heavily above property to make sure that we get superior returns for our owners, and that has seen Zubin and his team move from an average deal count, if you will, of signing new hotels from 4 to 5 a year to 26 last year alone, including 2 strategic license agreements for collectively 225 hotels in the mid-scale. Not to be outdone by volume, we've announced the first 2 Waldorf Astorias and today announced a third. So from a Hilton perspective, I couldn't be more proud of what the team are achieving, or bullish on what this market is going to achieve in the longer term.
You just spoke about the third one. Now that you made the announcement, let's hear more about that, or do we wait?
You don't need to wait. I'm sure Zubin would be delighted to give you some
All right, so
information
we'll
on
to
his
speak about that.
latest baby.
Yeah.
Indeed. So, Bhuvanesh, I'll go back a few minutes in this conversation. Our strategy in India from 2 years when we started speaking 2 years ago to where we are now has actually been on point. And Alan spoke about the third Waldorf Astoria that we are coming up in beautiful Goa, where we are today. And it's going to be a beautiful hotel in South Goa, built on a beautiful 20-acre site. Will open in the next 4 to 5 years, around 2030. And it is going to be one of the most iconic hotels in this market. But the point is that when we spoke about, 2 years ago, the India opportunity was for us to have. And, in the pyramid that Alan spoke about, there was an opportunity for us at the top end, which was Waldorf Astorias. And before this, of course, we've announced the Waldorf Astoria at New Delhi Airport, right? And then we have the lovely one in Goa, which is coming up, right? And of course, we have an under construction one in Jaipur, which will again, all of these hotels opening around 2030 to 2032, in the next 4 to 6 years. That's the time frame. But it's also about, curating that strategy of filling up the belly of the business that we often speak about, which is about catering to the India mid-market growth story.
True.
And which is where we've, over the last 2 years, signed platform deals with really high-quality partners, with Embassy and Nile.
I'm going to come back on that. I don't want you to give it away because that's part of a question. But tell me, Alan, you just spoke about coming back after COVID. Looking back at all those years, we don't even remember COVID now, right? And what we went through. The comeback has been superlative.
It has been. It's been amazing as an industry. What's been amazing about it really is Indian hoteliers took the learnings for COVID, took the efficiencies from COVID. And so not only do we have strong RevPAR growth and strong rate growth, which is great for the industry and great for our team members that are enjoying more service charge and more earnings and more promotion potential, those efficiencies are flowing through to greater returns for our owners. And why is that important? We have to remember as hoteliers, we're not competing with each other. We're competing with commercial, we're competing with retail, we're competing with residential for use of land. So we should be so proud as an industry in what we're achieving, because ultimately that's where the momentum is coming. We're in the other people's money business. We're in the real estate business.
True.
And so our asset class is having a shining moment. And the most pleasing is the learnings from COVID have bled into our hotels and they're there to stay, which is going to mean stronger profits going forward.
True. And from despair to where we are today, there is not just hope. There is so much of ambition which is going to come true. So Zubin, coming back to you, 2 years into leading Hilton in South Asia, right now you also have Sri Lanka. How would you describe the transition from strategy setting to execution on the ground? What has been the hardest shift to make?
Well, Bhuvanesh, our strategy was very clear when we were getting into this exercise, and it was always about making sure the strategy lands right on the ground. And I think we got about the action plan fairly quickly. We got about it in a very focused, very efficient manner, and we had pretty much we saw the white space in this market, which from a Hilton point of view meant the luxury segment, the upscale and the upper upscale segments, and also the mid-market segments. Also, the Hilton opportunity was to go from the then about 20 cities to 70 plus cities. That is now, I can confirm to you, is firmly in place. So it was about tying up with the right partners, getting the right teams on board, investing in at the corporate level, investing in the business in terms of getting more resources, opening up the way we did business in this market, and just bringing in more brands and just opening all the channels up. So I wouldn't say that it was complicated. I think we were very, very clear about what we had to deliver and what we had to achieve in India, and we had the entire Hilton, might behind this fastest growing market on the planet. So, so execution clearly was at that point in time when we spoke in 2024. To me, was how are we? I knew we were going to achieve it, but how are we going to get there? Right, and then of course, step by step, we did the two strategic license agreements. We signed the third Waldorf Astoria that we hear about, and then we have a plethora of Hiltons and DoubleTrees all over the country. Right, so that's the stage where we are in right now. So execution, in my mind, back in 2024, when we were in the same room talking to each other, was probably perhaps the biggest question: how are we going to do it? I can confirm to you that that strategy is firmly underway now. And you will see the results coming out now very, very soon.
From, with a very keen interest and from the corner of my eye, I've been watching over the last 2 years the building blocks that both of you have put in place for South Asia. And I must commend you for the team that you've built up in your corporate office and the quality of talent that you're developing and bringing into Hilton.
We have the best team in the business.
Yeah. So I think I must commend you for what you've done, but don't hold on as yet. Let it go. You've got a lot more to do.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're going to be as good as the people you have. So tell me, Alan, at a macro level, you're sitting on a perch there. Why does South Asia and India in particular stand out today compared to other emerging markets globally, vying for investment and brand attention?
I think let me digress a little bit to the how to realize the opportunity and the great compliment you paid Zubin and team. Ultimately, our role as Hilton is the same in any market we trade in the world, which is it starts with a great team member experience. If you can deliver a great team member experience and you have great products that are regionalized to market, you can deliver a great guest experience. Those two things together should give you a rate premium, and fantastic hotel stewardship should see that flow down to GOP and owner returns. And Hilton's had that simple approach, team member to guest to top line to bottom line, for 105 years. Now, we have to adapt it in every market we go to, and that's certainly Zubin's mission. Why is he getting so much support, so much momentum, so much investment? Well, that is the demographics of India that applies to every sector, which is the largest population base in the world, the youngest population base in the world, the strongest GDP growth in the world. Everybody hates, for the right reasons because they're very different, comparisons between India and China. So I'm not going to make one other than I've had the pleasure of being around when China hit $4,000 in household income from a consumer perspective. And our estate from 2011 for 5 hotels is now over 1,000 trading hotels in China. And I feel the same about India. The infrastructure growth, the fast trains, the railways, the privatization of the airports, the airplanes that are on back order, Temple Town tourism is all coming to the fore, and it's fueled by success of GDP here, success of the business here, rising consumer confidence and consumer growth here. And so therefore, if I look at the longer term horizon in India, I can't see, there'll be ups and downs on the way.
Of course.
I can't see any scenario and that this market doesn't become the 3rd largest lodging market on the planet, and that's incredibly exciting
I'm
for
my fingers crossed.
For Hilton, for the industry, for you, for all of us, and most importantly, for the younger generation that are school graduates today that are picking a sector of growth that is going to be fast moving, offer high promotion, high training, and everybody's focused on it, all the way from central government to the 3 of us here.
True that, because this industry is the highest employment generator. You know, the secretary also spoke about it, right? And more than anything else, this is a fantastic career to have. You know, look at these gentlemen, they don't come cheap, right? So, but they're doing and giving back a lot to this industry. Zubin, over to you. From your vantage point, how has the Indian owner and investor mindset evolved since our last conversation?
Bhuvanesh, it's an ongoing trend. The Indian owner mindset the market has become more mature. There is a real ask for higher than before returns on investment.
True.
And I think that has been a very fast, rapidly evolving trend. But that is, I see just a lot of maturity around, you know, those hotel investments and what those real ROIs are. So there's a real ask around those hotel investments delivering real returns for the owners, and that is a shift which we appreciate at Hilton, because we are in the business of delivering best-in-class hotel returns. So not only, to your point, you know, are we focusing on a 10x growth plan, which will happen in India? You know, I think we have an equal amount of effort going in right from now as we blossom into a much larger business over the next 5 to 10 years. You know, there's just a lot of focus on commercial excellence, i.e. achieving higher than market share, as well as operational excellence. So I think that's where we are coming in. But to your point, that is what the Indian owner has started not only expecting more, but also demanding more. And that's how things are shifting.
So tell me, Alan, Hilton today is expanding across luxury, full service and focus service segments almost simultaneously. How deliberate is this multi-segment strategy for India and South Asia?
Look, I think particularly of a company like Hilton, we've been successful in matching the demographics. And so, as I said earlier, think of first class to economy class in a plane, but then everybody has aspirations on that plane to, as they are successful in life, to be able to move up. And we want to grow with people. So the aspiration for Hilton is to attract new customers into our loyalty program, into our entry-level brands, to grow with them, and through their success and our success, see them transition through those brands. And although the Hampton Inn customer of today may not be a Waldorf Astoria customer of tomorrow, they may well be in the longer term. So it's important for everyone to be able to hope and dream. And then in terms of the luxury customer of today, or the Hilton full service customer of today, not only is that a huge financial opportunity for our owners and business partners here in India, it's a must-win opportunity for a global hotel chain. India's outbound travel has moved, in my time in stewarding India from a distance, has moved from 5 million to 30 million.
True.
Again, poor China comparison, China's at 130 million. And so if you are any branded company that relies on global recognition, the global story of India is not only the returns to be had in building a vibrant hotel company within India, it's the sort of unfathomable India of the future and an outbound consumer demand. You only need to go to Thailand today and talk about Indian weddings in Phuket or Bangkok, and you will receive the famous Thai smile and then some. And that's true for many markets in Southeast Asia and beyond, as the high-spend India outbound traveller has started to make a meaningful dent in global travel.
Well, Indians are traveling like there is no tomorrow. So, and they're all over. I was recently in Sri Lanka. They get between 25 and 35% of their business
That's right.
from Indian travelers.
Yeah, India is the largest inbound.
India is the largest. So fair enough, Zubin. Now you've got another one to tell me about. When you look at the Indian market, market by market, where are you seeing the most compelling alignment between demand, infrastructure, and owner readiness? Because this is where a lot of work has happened.
Sure. India has tranched itself out at 4 or 5 different levels. And that's where infrastructure means demand, meets supply, meets customer expectation. And the obvious place to start is the top 10 markets, markets like Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, Pune, so on and so forth. These are markets which are very deep markets from a demand point of view, where infrastructure readiness is obviously is imminent, and at the same time there is a huge hospitality market to grow. But I think the limiting factor in some of those markets is high land costs and high build costs. Consequently, the opportunity has then shifted towards the secondary and the tertiary markets, which tie directly into the India mid-market growth story. We've been seeing statistics and how the Indian demographic is now moving up in terms of per capita income, and it's one of the numbers I heard about is about $3,000 per capita, which is going to go up to about $4,000, which means there is a huge amount of spending propensity in the Indian domestic customer to avail branded hospitality. And that's where the tier 2 and tier 3, and that's where our Spark and our Hampton story fits in beautifully, and Hilton Garden story fits in beautifully. Then there is another opportunity which is coming up in ecosystems which are self-sufficient, and that's what we see, for instance, in Bangalore, where we have hotels as part of office tech parks. Where there's a captive demand, and we have hotels. We have a Hilton Garden Inn at the Manyata Tech Park in Bangalore, and then we have a few others. But these are hotels which are privy to a captive market, which we are harnessing very well and to great efficiency and success. So I think that is the other side of how this opportunity is presenting itself. The third opportunity, which we cannot ignore with the growing Indian economy and the desire for the domestic Indian traveler to visit places and religious places and pilgrimage places and cultural places, is those kind of markets. So I think it is so the market has segmented itself and tranched itself into various segments, and of course I don't think we can ever miss out on the big Indian wedding story. That is here to stay. So
a little ago, Alan spoke about China at 4,000 GDP and the hockey stick effect taking effect.
Yeah.
I think India, it'll happen sooner than later. So we've got to be ready for the action, and we might as well soak in our best bets to be ready in time. We cannot delay it.
So Bhuvanesh, that is also what I consider as a unique success factor in India.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of where the Hilton business is in India and in South Asia. We have, over the last 2 years, announced plans for nearly 300 hotels,
Yeah.
which will open in the next 5 to 7
True.
years, right? We have now, and we are as a management team, very proactively and aggressively looking at when those hotels start opening, how are we going to deliver the best-in-class growth and best-in-class delivery in the performance of those assets.
And experience.
And experience, of course, indeed. That experience is a variable you just cannot miss in the hospitality business. So as we now look at around circa 2030 and between 2030 to 2032, we'll have our luxury segment with the Waldorfs opening up. Delhi is going to open, Waldorf Goa will open, then we have Signia coming in, we have a few Conrads coming in, Hilton's coming in various markets. We have a great pipeline for DoubleTrees, Hilton Garden Inns, Hampton Sparks. It'll be a very full portfolio, 90% of which is going to be brand new. And
So
that
this
is going,
looks good.
it is an excellent story, but at the same time, while we know that the customer will pay a premium in ADR for the Hilton product, we have this time now where we are, over the next couple of years, very actively looking at operational and commercial excellence of the business that is yet to come.
Excellent.
And that's where
So, you're talking about 2030 and 2032. That is like when we got into COVID to now.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
that time will fly. You just look at the last 5-6 years.
absolutely.
It's
going to go
where were
very
we
fast.
and where are we? So tell me, Alan, my next question to you is about Spark by Hilton's entry into the Indian marks and the brand's Asia Pacific debut. Beyond the headline numbers, what does this say about Hilton's confidence in India and its consumption story?
I think what it says is if you look at the future GDP spend or consumer confidence driven by household spend, you look at the infrastructure build, you look at the young population, you think of a pyramid of hotels, if I was a land banker, I would be following that demographic. I'd be following where the infrastructure is getting built. But the reality is, in the unorganized sector, there are fantastic properties that perhaps are struggling with quality, that perhaps are the right land, the right location, but are unable to bring to life a branded experience that signals
True.
quality to that future consumer of tomorrow. And there are experts such as our friends at Embassy that are in markets in a way that we don't understand, that have realized that opportunity. Now, the India new build cycle and everything that Zubin just spoke about, of course, is true, and we're building hotels faster than ever before. But there are some existing products that really can be brought up to a quality level. They can have a Hilton hallmark. There are specific things that they need to do. So why debut Spark in India before anywhere else? Because India is the largest unorganized sector in the market, and we're in the real estate business, and the real estate business has always come back to the team, is about real estate returns. And so if you're an owner that has an opportunity to do that, why wouldn't you shortcut
Absolutely.
this market and take the opportunity to participate in what is a huge growth story for India?
See, you can't just operate at the top of the pyramid or the belly of the business. You've got to be where the action is, and this is where the action is. So there is a strata of customers or guests ready to experience, who may be the first timers. But I must tell you, my kids or this current generation, they're not like you and me who are saving. They want to straight away cut through the clutter and go to the top. They're not saving.
They're not. And when you think of the current generation of travelers or the future generation of travelers, they're not saving to buy the branded handbag. They're not saving to buy the car. They're not saving to buy the trinkets that they once were, which were those ostentatious signs of new money.
True.
We're in the economy of experiences. People are paying more now for experiences than ever before, and that generation is not prepared to wait. If they want to experience Goa, they'll experience it today, but they'll experience it at a price point that they can afford. They won't save to experience it, so we need to make sure we meet the customer of today where they sit at today, equally at all levels of the pyramid. At the top end, India seems to add a new millionaire every 30 minutes, I read.
True.
It is now up to 800,000 millionaires in this country. And so at all levels of the pyramid, you have got brand new customers that are having first time experiences. What's true of them is it's first time and it's experience. Your first time Waldorf Astoria customer, your first time branded hotel customer, all of it being fueled by this incredible momentum, which is why I'm always smiling when I'm talking about India. Because it's that runway that's only just taken off today.
And the level of awareness and education.
Yes.
Right? So they're very, very aware. I mean, my children, that age group,
Yeah.
I see the number of kids. Japan is not a cheap place to travel to.
No.
They are going repeatedly to Japan.
That's the. Sorry.
They're braver than ever before. They're more connected than ever before. The age of social media has meant foreign places are perhaps
Huge
not
exposure.
as intimidating as they once were. And because they're connected through the power of technology, through auto translation and fast learning, you will find an 18-year-old will get on a flight by themselves and go to Japan because they've never been to Japan and be completely confident to do it. And we need to make sure that we cater to where those customers are.
Apart from the fact that those countries are hungry for the Indian traveler.
There's not a market that's not hungry for the Indian traveller.
True. So Zubin, tell me, we were talking about Spark. How does Spark complement Hilton's existing portfolio in India? And what kind of owner profile is it attracting that perhaps wasn't engaging the Hilton brand earlier?
Great question. Thank you. Now, how does Spark fit into our strategy? Spark is a brand that fits directly into the Indian mid-market growth story. It is a premium economy brand which has the capacity and the capability and the wherewithal to enter over 100 markets in this country. And so that's the spread, and that's the distribution that Spark will be able to get eventually over a period of time. And the product, which has been regionalized and localized to the Indian market, to the preferences of the Indian customer, is directly fits in within that 3 to 5,000 rupees spend, which is where a majority of that traveler sits. So that's where, and of course, beyond those markets, Spark will also grow in tier 1 and tier 2 markets. So I think, to your point, it caters to that fastest growing segment in the Indian demographic, and it is, and in any city, any tier 3, tier 4 city where we announced the Spark deal, about a year ago, and at this point in time, we already have a fair amount of hotels that have been signed, and actually we will end up opening our first 1 or 2 hotels this year. So it fits into the consumer, the customer, the guest requirement, the guest need, because it fits into a certain bracket of a traveling public. On the other side, I think it is a fast to convert, renovation ready brand, and that is where I see a great potential where this brand can penetrate those markets, and we will have hotels, high quality hotels, which are smaller perhaps in size, but ready for a conversion to a higher quality brand with a minimal investment, and that's where the owner ROI gets unlocked for this kind of an asset. So I think there is just a very natural and logical fit both on the customer side, on the demand side, as well as on the owner ROI and supply side, and that's where Spark exactly fits in. Currently, of course, we have a partnership with Olive, and that's for 150 Spark by Hilton hotels, and that is really rolling very quickly, and that portfolio is set to expand. In fact, we might even end up having hotels there in Goa out of that very soon.
Excellent. So before I move gears and get into the flagship luxury and brand visibility, staying with Spark, short response: is there room for taking it away from India as a good export to other parts of?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the demand for Spark is at a price point that we haven't deployed in market before, can give you an opportunity to a new owner base that we haven't engaged before to be part of the Hilton story. That's incredibly powerful. We've seen demand for it right across Asia. I've been hesitant in other markets because the headroom in India is a lot stronger. So we'll deploy it when we feel that the headroom, but the opportunity for India, given the unorganized sector and the demand that the Spark team are realizing, is phenomenal. So yes, you will see it here first, but you'll certainly see it.
But let it mature here first.
Let it mature here. You'll see it in other markets in Southeast Asia, you'll see it in other markets in Asia, and certainly the Indian outbound traveler will recognize it when they're abroad.
And relate with it. So tell me, at the other end of the spectrum, Alan, developments like Waldorf Astoria, be it in Jaipur or AeroCity, and now the recent one that you've spoken about, Goa, does this signal a long-term luxury bet? One, how important is it for Hilton to establish such iconic flagships in India?
It's incredibly important. First of all, for our existing luxury travelers that have demand for India, whether they be Indian domestic travelers or for future inbound travelers, that we don't have a luxury presence in markets that they want to be in. Waldorf Astoria signifies the very pinnacle of luxury. It's a brand that we hold the closest of all our brands. It's a brand that we take a real estate first approach. If the real estate is not good enough to be rate leader, we won't deploy it. And we seek it for unique parcels of land, unique builds, unique designs with unique owners to be the very pinnacle for that particular market. Waldorf Astoria was opened, as you know, almost 100 years ago. And at the time of the Waldorf Astoria, Conrad Hilton said, to be the greatest of them all. My approach to the brand, the company's approach to the brand is to be the greatest of them all in Goa, to be the greatest of them all in Jaipur, to be the greatest of them all in Delhi and beyond. And if it can't be, we won't deploy the brand. If it's not in keeping with the Waldorf Astoria Admiralty Arch in London, the Waldorf Astoria New York, the Waldorf Astoria Maldives, the Waldorf Astoria in Osaka, we're about to open in Tokyo and in Sydney, and in all those locations, real estate first approach, stunning locations, stunning hotels with great partners. That's incredibly important. If I talk about the pyramid, if I talk about a Christmas tree,
right up there.
A Hilton offer in a market without a Waldorf Astoria is missing its crowning jewel. And I'm so excited that we have got such great partners in such great locations to put the crowning jewel on our business in India.
Absolutely. And it's time for India to experience the very best of Hilton.
Certainly.
Right? So Zubin, Delhi AeroCity in particular has become a showcase for global hospitality brands. No more is it, in your language, the belly of the business brand's location. It's moving to luxury. How does Waldorf Hilton combination there elevate Hilton's strategy and stature in the Indian market?
Great question. Of course, the Waldorf Astoria sits right at the top of the hospitality food chain. It is perhaps the most aspirational brand, hospitality brand.
How long did it take for you to turn around the one in New York?
Well, the renovation of that property, given it's historically listed, 7 years, I think, from closure to reopening. And I might say, having just seen it for its grand reopening, rightly so. Rightly so.
Sorry for butting in.
So from our perspective, it is a befitting entry into the capital of the country, and I can assure you the planning around that hotel is going to be just as much. It is a hotel which is, once it opens, is going to be one of the most iconic countries in the country, right? So so that's one piece to that development. And what we also have there is a Hilton hotel coming up as within the same cluster as Waldorf Astoria. And we have seen the power of clustering, having two hotels, because Bangalore, we have several examples of these. Most famously, the Hilton and the Hilton Garden Inn in Manyata, which is a combination cluster hotel. We are seeing, of course, the operating metrics and the operating efficiencies in those kind of hotels are, of course, I think best in class, highest in the industry. So that is from the operational side to it. But of course, from purely a brand positioning, this is, I would say, the right entry for us in the state capital, in the capital of India. And these hotels will position our brands and Hilton where it rightfully belongs. Of course, these are global. Delhi is a global gateway market. It's a global destination, and of course, then it pitches our portfolio to the larger universe out there.
Excellent. So my next few questions are going to be rapids, and there are going to be two back-to-backs for you, Alan. Hilton recently engaged directly with India's owner-investor community through the Bengaluru brand showcase. What prompted this shift towards more open, experiential engagement, one? And two, when is the next?
The answer to the first is demand. I mean, we have never experienced such a demand that we have for our brands and our products. And as opposed to our development team being on the road, we can't be everywhere all at once. We decided to invest heavily ahead of the curve, build showcase rooms in our brand showcase, and bring the owner community to us as a response to that demand. Said differently, and a nice problem to have, we just couldn't keep up. I think we will probably do the next one, perhaps 27, perhaps 28, but the brand showcase in itself gave us such a leg up and advantage, and that momentum is seeing the phones ringing, the doors being knocked on today. And as we bring these properties to life, as the first Waldorf Astoria opens, as the first Spark opens, I'm not sure that we'll need to. I think that momentum will naturally come to us. but it was a fun exercise and one, if necessary, we'll engage in today. It certainly served its purpose. As nothing creates demand like a new showcase product.
True.
The first Spark, the first of the Hampton master license agreements, our first LXR, which is a luxury collection, the first Curio, our lifestyle hotel coming to market, and of course the first Waldorf Astoria, all coming within the next 3 to 5 years. Amazing.
But let me tell you, the positive word of mouth was in bold and large fonts.
Thank you.
Right? So looking across South Asia, India, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, despite its troubles for Alan, how do you prioritize markets, and what role does India play as the anchor for the region?
Look, I think if I look at Nepal and I look at Sri Lanka, as much as I'm proud that Sri Lanka is coming out, these are perhaps what India once was 2 decades ago, which is short cycle markets. It's our role to partner with owners and help them understand what real estate returns can be in the hotel sector. But these markets, Nepal and Sri Lanka particularly, have proven to be very short cycle markets. And so it's not that you can forecast when there's trouble on the horizon, but the cycle, RevPAR cycle, seems to be in 3 to 5 year cycles. It doesn't have the demographic power that India does. It doesn't have the infrastructure build. It doesn't have the GDP growth. Interestingly, they will be supported by India, and the biggest opportunity for the two markets, which is why we put them together, is Indian outbound. So we will have a presence there. We seek to grow there, but they don't have the same fundamentals that India does today. I would put to you that nobody has the same fundamentals that India has today, so it's a high bar. So important from an inbound perspective, a long way from having the domestic demand that's going to fuel growth the way it does in India.
Nepal and Bangladesh are relatively strong travel tourism markets.
Yes.
So I think not that just India fuels it, but India does well, they will do well. So there's a direct correlation.
That's right.
Right? Zubin, to you, as Hilton expands into tier 2 and tier 3 cities, what are the biggest myths that need to be dispelled about operating successfully in these markets?
Well, the biggest myth is that needs to be dispelled is the tier 2 and tier 3 guest is an equally discerning customer who's seeking quality.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And we should not discount the fact that we have great opportunities in these markets, and that customer in those markets, that guest, is perhaps sometimes even more well-traveled from a global,
the exposure
point of view. So we cannot underestimate the quality ask in those markets, and at the same time, we cannot also just purely operate on instinct.
True.
Of course, in the past, we've seen cyclicities, we've seen these markets where we believe or we think that, they operate a certain way. Some markets, let's say, 10 years ago in Rajasthan, summers are going to be slow because it's summers. Jodhpur, for instance, as a market, nothing happens. The previous myth was that nothing would happen in Jodhpur during May and June because the market is, just too hot for anybody to visit. Well, India as a country, and because of the infrastructural development and the businesses that have moved into various cities, there's a basic shift in demand patterns in those markets.
True.
So I think, just instinctively in those markets, yes, I think we all know what needs to be done, and how important F&B is and banqueting is, and the difference between a high season and a low season. But at the same time, we cannot ignore the power of a scientifically driven revenue management system in those markets, and I think that's the biggest myth that's to be broken. So that's we just cannot underestimate and cannot take them as simple markets to operate hotels in. I think they're becoming more mature as we.
So I want to roll the next 5 questions quickly. First one goes to Alan. Performance is often the strongest validation of strategy. How is India performing today on key commercial metrics compared to Hilton's other high growth regions?
Would be the second it would be the top market if it wasn't for a political disruption last year. It has had double-digit RevPAR growth. It's had phenomenal profit growth from a customer service and a quality perspective. So I would say in the short-term metrics that you trade a hotel on, if you're an owner looking at your product today at an all-time high against any other market in Asia Pacific, only pipped in RevPAR growth by Japan because Japan didn't have the political upheaval. If it wasn't for that, top line, bottom line, team member experience, guest experience would be at best time, and certainly I've been minding this market for 18 years and running, the best time in my history in looking into India.
Excellent. Zubin, with growth comes complexity. How are you strengthening your teams? We spoke about it briefly. Governance, decision making to ensure consistency as the footprint expands, and it has to, and it is.
It's with growth comes responsibility.
True.
And I think as we grow, that responsibility even grows greater, and you have, it's responsibility to your business, to your team, to the culture you're developing. So, at Hilton, we believe that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So we have a people-first culture, and culture is, India's best place to work 3 years in a row, and we are extremely proud of that. So, that is where it all starts. And then, of course, as the business expands, and our business is we're already seeing it is set to expand exponentially in this market. It is also about putting in the right operating practices, the operating discipline in the business. Absolutely. Is extremely important.
It's all about SOPs and checklists and
understanding and always acknowledging the fact that we are in the hospitality business, and guest experience matters, and and the moment of truth for a guest is not necessarily when he enters the hotel or he or she enters the hotel. It starts from the moment they call the hotel or make a reservation online. So the fundamentals of that are extremely, extremely important, right? And then, of course, I think so it's about guest experience, it's about revenue management, it's about commercial strategies, it is about operational excellence, it is about team member happiness in our hotels. Always very, very important. So these are the things. And lastly, it is about empowering the teams, and empowering the teams throughout, right from the corporate office all the way to ultimately to that team member who is serving
everyone
our guest.
Must also realize that the guest has choices to make.
Indeed.
You don't measure up in his esteem or her esteem, right?
Yeah.
Not that the guest is not going to come back. The word of mouth is not going to be very positive.
That's right. And it's my role, or our role as Hilton, to make sure that we invest in the business ahead of the curve to make all things that Zubin just so eloquently talked about a reality. And that means ratios to owner support. That means as the business grows, deploying more designers, deploying more revenue management resources, spending more money on marketing, critiquing your product. You're always evolving as the customer is evolving. And in the days of AI, your hotel is laid bare by a chat GPT.
Oh, absolutely.
At any particular time, and the millennials that we were talking about have become experts in hotel reviews, and they don't even need to use their thumbs to get them. So
absolutely.
We need to make sure that while Hilton has got great momentum, and we're certainly having a moment in the sun today, that is true at 50 hotels, it's true at 150 hotels, it's true at 1,000 hotels. That's really the art form of what you're seeking to do as a management company. And we've scaled up our business all around Asia with that mindset. What got us here today, and that reputation for excellence and owner returns and team member engagement, has to be true as we grow. And the moment you lose that magic, the moment you become greedy perhaps and open more hotels than you put infrastructure in for, is the moment you will decline. So it's my role specifically to make sure that we put the infrastructure in ahead of the freight train that is coming in India, and that
Absolutely.
Zubin and his team continue to do what they're doing today, which is just delivering phenomenal performance.
Absolutely. So tell me, Alan, there's been a view historically that India is a future market. Has India now become a now market for Hilton, and what defines that shift internally?
If anyone was to say to you, when is India going to take off, or isn't India a future market, I would argue with them that they haven't been paying attention.
True.
And so it's been a long time, certainly since our board or any board that I've come across has asked the when will India take off question. It doesn't matter what sector you're in, whether you're in AI, whether you're in automotive, when you're in energy, whether you're in manufacturing and you're in China plus one or Europe plus one strategy. Just look at India's GDP growth. So I'm not sure that there is anyone, certainly not within our industry, that is asking the question that they asked 10 years ago. And if they are, I would ask them the attention question politely in return. So it is certainly a now and beyond market for everybody and anybody. And I think that's demonstrated by the amount of international hoteliers, domestic hoteliers, the fullness of the room here in Hope and in Goa, which is not easy to get to internationally today. Everybody's excited about India, and rightly so.
Zubin, tell me from a leadership standpoint, how do you balance global brand standards with the need for local relevance in a market as nuanced as India?
I think that was 101 in our India growth strategy. And it came about when we regionalized Hampton, which is the world's largest
True.
brand, and we brought it to India.
We saw the mock-ups.
We saw the mock-ups last year.
Yeah.
And a key part of the Hampton brand was to regionalize that product, from a breakfast point of view, from a guest experience point of view, to the palate, to the taste of the Indian consumer. We did the same thing with Spark. So that's one. Second, we've launched with our Conrad brand. There's a 135 experience that we've launched, which means if you have a guest in a hotel, and he only had 1 hour to visit a destination, what would be the things that that they should be doing, and 3 hours and 5 hours. Again, localizing and regionalizing the global brandscape into the Indian context is going to get us the competitive advantage. And in India more than anywhere else in the world. And I think from a Hilton perspective, and that has been one of the core elements of our strategy right from the stage when we started formulating that.
So we're now down to the last question apiece to both of you. Alan, if you were to step back and assess Hilton's India journey over the last decade, where do you believe the company stands today in terms of maturity and influence?
I would say post-degree, not yet masters. And India's a learning opportunity for any hotelier. I mean, Zubin rightly put it. There is no brand that you and I know of in India that didn't regionalize for success. And we're constantly trying to regionalize our brands for new markets. So I think as a humble hotelier, you are trying to learn. So I would say, does Hilton get a good scorecard today? Yes, we're doing better than ever before.
Excellent. I agree with that.
But we're still learning.
There's way to go.
There's a way to go.
Like you said, humble hotelier, that's the line that I must carry with me. Yeah, if you're not a humble hotelier, you have a problem.
We're certainly still learning.
Yeah, you have to have your feet on the ground. Yeah, and your ears as well. So Zubin, looking ahead, what should owners, investors, partners take away from Hilton's long-term commitment to India and South Asia, basically the region that you head?
Yes, thank you. Clearly, we are investing in this market. We are, I would say we are ultimately chasing quality in everything that we do. We are set to become a very large business with great distribution across the country. That is bound to happen in already, the 250 plus hotel projects that we have, in various stages talked about. But from an owner perspective, the clear messaging should be that it's not only about distribution footprint across 100 destinations in India, ultimately, but it is about a business, a hospitality operator and a brand that believes in best in class and that is chasing quality at all levels. And so that's one key message. And the other one, of course, is that I think instinctively at Hilton we all understand, admire, and that's absorb, and that's the way we operate even in our day-to-day conversations, that it is always about people. And ultimately, in long-term partnerships, the tide's going to go up, and sometime it will go down, and there's going to be ups and downs through the way. But it is about ultimately the partnership we want to develop with our owners, and that partnership is going to take us, and them, a far longer path. Right, and we see it, being demonstrated in new hotels that are being signed with existing owners. That is the proof of the pudding, right?
Absolutely. I was going to speak about that, but you spoke about it. How do we have lasting partnerships and get them to invest in other hotels?
So, Bhuvanesh, at this point, and we can talk more about it, but I can tell you that we have a lot of our existing partners and actually newer partners who are signing up multiple hotels with us and coming back to sign more, right? And clearly they see some value in what we're trying to deliver, but at the same time I think the magic also lies in the people in this business and in this team. And I think all of us clearly understand that the power of ultimately progressing in a market like India is also about ownership relationships. It is about how we as professionals partner with our owners and develop a long-term relationship. So I think it's also equally important.
How well said. I've thoroughly enjoyed my show with Alan and Zubin. We're going to come back with them and do the next one, looking back at not just 2024 but at 2026. Now, let me just get down to doing the closing ritual and try and sum up the show. What stand out from today's conversation is not just scale or speed, but certainty. Certainty that India and South Asia are no longer peripheral to global hospitality strategies. Certainty that growth today must be intentional, inclusive, and enduring. Hilton's journey in this region is clearly entering a defining chapter. You've just heard that, and how. One shaped by long-term partnerships, Zubin has been stressing about it, so has Alan, brand clarity, and a deep understanding of the Indian market's diversity and potential. Hilton's journey in this region is clearly entering a defining chapter, but a short chapter where we are going to be able to see a lot many brands, not just assets, in India. As owners and investors and industry leaders look ahead, the message is unmistakable. The opportunity is real, the momentum is here, and the decisions taken today will shape hospitality for decades to come. Hilton is a global leader. Like I said, its best has yet to come to India and South Asia. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zubin.
Thank you.
Right, for your perspectives with such candor and conviction. It's been wonderful having you back at the BWH Dialogues. See you soon back again, and go touch the sky.
Thank you.
For that's waiting for you.
It's been wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
Such a pleasure, Alan.
Always.
Thank you for being there and enriching
Thank you.
the show. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We shall draw curtains on this episode. Till the next, see you later. Bye-bye.